Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alpesh Patel. I'm Vice President and General Manager for DocuSign's insurance business. Wanted to welcome all of you to this session. Yesterday I spoke to many of you guys, but have a pleasure to speak with all of you guys today. Insurance is one of the most important vertical for DocuSign and the fastest growing segment for DocuSign. And this growth is fueled by one primary reason, where insurance companies over the last few years were using DocuSign for some of their internal processes. And in the last 2 to 3 years, we are seeing a major shift from that internal processes into core insurance business processes, because the amount of benefits as a result of the volume insurance drives associated with core insurance business processes is so high. And that's where there is a significant value that is driving a change and also driving value for DocuSign. Some of the numbers I had shared yesterday, where we look into the next 3 years, we expect that insurance industry alone is going to eliminate around more than 100 million papers by using DocuSign. And if the trajectory on the growth that we are on, if that continues, that will be more than billion papers in the next decade. And that's equivalent to saving 12 million trees, which is the impact that the worst drought in California has caused. So as a room, we have an opportunity to really reverse the impact of a drought, which is very powerful. But we also know it's not easy. I mean, any change in insurance is not easy. What we see is whenever, if we look into our most successful customers, one common factor tends to be what we call a digital hero, somebody who is truly passionate about making this change, who do believe in the value that we can drive. And today we are fortunate to have a couple of these digital heroes from 2 different insurance companies, and I have a distinct pleasure of introducing them. We will have Eric Eisman from AIG, who will go first and share with us the process and the journey that AIG has gone through that. Eric is head of their risk business, and Eric, you can always correct me, but he also plays a critical role of a business sponsor for AIG, for DocuSign, and his team also led a major transformation in their travel guard business. So today he is going to share an example of how AIG is using DocuSign in their core insurance business processes and the impact and the results that they are seeing. So with that, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Eric. Thank you for sharing the information with us.
Thanks, Alpesh. Shannon and I actually thank you for the compliment and decided we're going to put digital hero on our business cards now. So thanks. We have new titles. Yeah. I'm not afraid to plagiarize, by the way. She just said that was her joke. So so first of all, let me make sure that the clicker works. It does work. So I'm actually the head of consumer claims operations at AIG. Recently moved into a position leading our recovery practice. I usually say that's my day job because as Alpesh mentioned, I'm one of the business sponsors within AIG for the deployment of DocuSign, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the journey that we've been on in utilizing DocuSign. But first, a little bit about AIG if you haven't heard about us. We are a multinational insurance carrier. I usually like to highlight that in the U.S., a lot of folks know us from our commercial insurance P&C business or the life and retirement business that we have. However, we also are a pretty large consumer writer outside of the United States. And we also do have a high net worth insurance line within the U.S. that we call Private Client Group. About 60,000 employees. We have operations in 92 different countries, and that's important for us as we think about our relationship with DocuSign and bridging and helping to really implement digital signatures in jurisdictions outside of the U.S. where we need to deal with an FSA or another insurance regulator. And DocuSign's been great for us in terms of partnering with us to go to those regulators and help try and break through some of the barriers for us to be able to do that. So First of all, some of you may have heard me speak at Dreamforce, and Alpesh referred to the use case that we implemented late last year, AIG Travel Online, which was a mobile app that we built for our travel insurance. And so I wanted to provide a brief update about that without going into too much background in terms of what that entailed. It was basically an insurance app that allowed our customers to file a travel insurance claim from any device of their choosing. So it could be a desktop, a tablet, or a mobile device. We built it on the Salesforce platform, and we integrated DocuSign with it in such a way where, as they were answering questions about their claim, it was populating the claim form in the background. And when they got to the end of the process, they had the opportunity to digitally sign their claim form, as well as attach pictures of things like their expense receipts and proof of purchase that we require as documentation in the claims process in order to reimburse them for the claim. And as I was presenting that at Salesforce, we were right on the cusp of going live. So it was really talking about benefits that we were expecting to generate. And I wanted to highlight and really bring back a statistic for me. The last session was talking a little bit, there was a question about user adoption. And one of the statistics that we are seeing with this app is, as people get to the end of the process, they have the option, like I said, to digitally sign their claim form and take pictures of their receipts and submit that. They also have the option to print the claim form and mail in that evidence that I talked about. And what we're finding is that 98% of our customers that use the platform are choosing that digital signature option. So we feel like that's great feedback from our customers, that this really is something that's improving the customer experience. It's providing value to them. It's brought our claims process from about 26 days for those particular covers that are able to use this down to 3 days. So huge opportunity, huge benefit to the customer in terms of being reimbursed for costs that they've had to go out of pocket for because they were on a trip. You know, we're able to get money back into their pocket quicker to reimburse them for it. So something that we considered a great success story at AIG, particularly our travel line of business, looked at that and said, you know, this is something where we're really driving an improved customer experience. It had cost savings that went along with it, and I'll talk a little bit more about what those are. But as we were finalizing that use case and getting ready to go live, we took a step back and said, we had so much success here and it was such a great opportunity. Let's look at where other opportunities exist across our business. And so we pulled 4 people from across our enterprise from different areas, dedicated them 100% for 3 weeks to go do an analysis, partnered with DocuSign Resources. And they went out, they interviewed the business process owners from different areas. They asked for data to come back and be able to crunch some numbers around productivity improvement and cost savings and things along those lines. And what they came back with at the end of 3 weeks was 25 different opportunities that they'd identified across the enterprise. Alpesh mentioned core insurance processes, so claims, policy admin. It touched human resources. We were already using DocuSign in procurement, but we found other opportunities in the procurement space, our global quality assurance space, just a wealth of opportunity in terms of areas where we could very quickly not only improve the customer experience, improve the efficiency of our processes, but also start to drive some cost out of our process. And if you've read the press clippings, we're under some pressure from shareholders about our expense ratio and trying to drive that down. And so this fit right into that in terms of helping us do that. In terms of benefits, you know, they talk a lot about taking paper out of the process. You heard Keith earlier this morning, and you heard Alpesh's statistics about 12 million pieces of paper and saving trees. At AIG, we print a lot of paper. In fact, we spend in excess of $10 million a year on print and mail services, mailing either policy documents or claims forms or things along those lines, out to our customers, looking for signatures. The other thing that was a big cost driver for us was mailing cost. And so taking out the postage where we spent on average $6 just in putting stamps on an envelope in order to mail out those documents that I mentioned, we were able to greatly reduce that cost by moving to DocuSign and sending it electronically. We were able to get over the privacy hurdle from our attorneys through the two-factor authentication that we're able to use, and so we're actually able to take what used to be a blank form and pre-populate it and improve that customer experience. And so those are some of the things that are driving the benefit for us at AIG in terms of our improvement and what really drove the program for us and got executive buy-in for us to embark on this journey. I want to take a couple minutes and talk specifically about a use case because I think it's important in terms of the ability to implement quickly. One of the things that we recognized that was important for us was to get some quick wins and really start to build some momentum around DocuSign and around the product to start to generate really crowdsourcing of ideas in terms of other areas to utilize it. Like I mentioned those 25 opportunities, and we felt like we had a pretty robust pipeline to get us going for the first 6 to 12 months. But we really wanted to make sure that this was something that we continued to drive across the enterprise for a sustained period of time, and it really started to grow on its own. So one of those opportunities that we looked at was in a business. We call it medical management services. It's a large group within our claims operations space. They're a group of doctors and nurses that provide consultation to our work comp claimants. They help them manage through the process. We have a durable medical equipment division that provides things like crutches and braces and things along those lines. And one of the groups that's in there is an organ transplant group. And really what they are focused on is our relationships with hospitals and medical providers and establishing a network for organ transplant and for our insureds that are utilizing this coverage, so it's a streamlined process for them, and we can help them navigate that organ transplant process. And when the team came back to us and said, we have this opportunity in this space, it's a painful process today, it was very easy for us to look at this and say, this is a space where we can provide improvement very quickly. It's a huge reputational risk for us. If something were to go wrong in this process and God forbid someone died because we couldn't get them the organ that they were needing in a timely manner because we couldn't get the relationship established or we didn't have the network in place to be able to do that, the press associated with that would be horrific. And we actually took this use case, we implemented it in 15 days utilizing the web console. And I don't expect you to look at the flow chart that's up here. It's actually a before and after on the top and the bottom, but you can see how much simpler the process became. Taking out the back and forth of mailing of contracts and agreements between hospitals and providers and utilizing a digital transaction management system to be able to send them back and forth. It's all tracked digitally now. It's not paper documents that are sitting in file cabinets and being scanned into our electronic content manager system. We're able to actually see where the agreements are in the process and actually become proactive in driving the finalization of these agreements instead of wondering where it's sitting on a desk or whose desks it's sitting on. We actually know whose inbox it's in, who they're waiting to review or sign the document, and able to move that forward a lot quicker. So that was a huge success for us. We've also been embarking on more complicated use cases. I don't want to suggest that everything can be done in 15 days. We're looking at integrating DocuSign with our policy administration systems and other larger things that will have much broader impact both financially as well as from a customer experience perspective. And that has really driven us to developing a center of excellence that sits on the business side of AIG. And there's actually some members that are here today from AIG. They underwent the CSA training. They're members of that COE. And the idea here is we've created a center of excellence within the company where folks that have ideas can come to us. They can say, I've got an idea for how to implement DocuSign. I've got a pain point in my process. Can you help me? We also provide training videos. We showcase the use cases that we've implemented within AIG to get them thinking about ideas so they can see that organ transplant use case that I talked about. They can see AIG Travel Online. They can see our private client group claims form use case that we've implemented, and really start to think about how it can be useful in their own area of the company. And lastly, it's an opportunity for us to have some control around the process in terms of how we structure the deployment of the web console, whether that be around control of the templates and how we roll that out. Security measures, I mentioned the two-factor authentication, so we're able to control that and the deployment and have some sense of standardization, even though we have so many disparate processes. And really what the way that we've done this is, if you come to us with an idea for an area, we will hold your hand through the very first use case and actually go through developing the template with you. We'll give you those guardrails around how to use DocuSign, and then we turn the keys over to you, like I said, with those guardrails. And what we've seen is the departments that we've rolled this out to have come back and said, oh, this is awesome. We've got these 15 other ideas, and we're actually empowering them to go implement those ideas themselves with us as advisors in terms of how to do that and some things to think about along the way. So I expect that this time next year we'll be talking about how it's been integrated with our claim system. We'll be talking about how DocuSign's been integrated with our policy admin systems. And you heard Keith on the main stage earlier talk about how he signed his AIG policy utilizing DocuSign. I expect to hear a lot more about those types of use cases and seamless processes within AIG in terms of how DocuSign's been integrated into the process, and it's really a seamless experience for our employees as well as for our customers.
Any questions? We're going to take a few minutes and go to the questions.
So, any challenges on the compliance side on implementation?
Sure. So.
You may just repeat the question in case people can't hear it in the back.
Yeah, thanks, Alpesh. So the question was, were there any challenges from the compliance side in terms of implementation? Two challenges that I'll highlight that were both very big. The first, as I mentioned, was with the privacy team. As you know, anytime you're dealing with PII on forms, anytime you happen to mail that or send that information to an unintended third party, that becomes a reportable incident. There's fines associated with it. There's a whole bunch of remediation that goes on. And so the first time that they saw this and said, wait a second, you're going to be emailing pre-populated forms with information like social security numbers and account numbers and name, address, and date of birth and all that stuff, they're like, you can't do that. And that's where DocuSign's two-factor authentication came into play, and we said, actually, we see a high number of incidents that come back to us where we've either the post office has mishandled something and we actually don't know where it ended up, or they've mailed it to the wrong address, and we get folks that return information and forms to us and say, think you mailed this to the wrong person. And so, what we were able to show through a demonstration of the tool is the fact that even if one of our adjusters or one of our operators in a call center fat fingers an email address, because the recipient on the other end needs to enter a 6-digit code that was texted to them on their cell phone, whoever received it's not going to have the cell phone to be able to enter that code, so they're actually not going to get exposed to that information. It actually reduces our risk associated with those types of incidents. The other thing that came out was as we started to move into Europe in dealing with the data privacy laws over in Europe and in that space, we were able to work with DocuSign in looking at their data centers and where they're placed and get the European regulators comfortable with the fact that we weren't going to be transferring data outside the EU and it was all going to be maintained within our ecosystem. And so those were, I think, the two biggest hurdles that we've overcome. Yeah.
Along those lines, was encryption of data something that you had to take into account as well?
So data encryption, yes, was something that we went through. We have a pretty strong, I'm sure all the insurance companies in here have a pretty strong vendor verification process around security and data encryption. I'm not really well equipped to talk about all the ins and outs of that, but I do know that it was a very easy process for us with DocuSign in terms of going through that, their ability to articulate the types of security protocols and everything else that went into it. You know, it was one of the easier SAQ processes that I've been through in terms of compliance and making sure that everything was ticked off.
All DocuSign data at rest and in transit are always encrypted. So we only get the metadata on where the envelope is going and not the content where it's all encrypted. And there are customers who would also choose to keep some of, if they choose that they can keep the keys for that encryption behind their firewall. So there are multiple options available in that, but data always stays encrypted both in transit and at rest.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Eric. Now I would like to welcome Shannon Mastrangelo. Got it? Okay. All right. She had to give me a 5-minute lesson on pronouncing her last name, but I think it was worthwhile. Shannon is with the Hartford Insurance, and she's part of their employee benefits business. She is another one of our digital heroes, and she's the director of their e-business e-business solutions. She has been working with DocuSign for a while, and like Eric, we requested that she share some of her experiences for this crowd. So, Shannon, thank you.
Great, thank you. So unfortunately, as you were showing all your numbers, I was thinking there were some good things I wanted to take pictures of, but it would be awkward to sit up here and take pictures of your slides. But thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about a little bit how the Hartford and DocuSign have partnered. A little bit about myself. I'm a director of e-business at the Hartfords. What that means in simple terms is my team is responsible for creating the digital strategy to support our employee benefits group, as well as managing the execution of that strategy. So it's both a blessing and a curse all in one, right? Before we get started, just like Eric, I want to talk a little bit about the Hartford for those of you that aren't aware. We're a Connecticut-based Fortune 500 company that was originally founded in 1810. So we actually just recently passed our 200th anniversary about 6 years ago. Today we have nationally about 17,500 employees, and we support 4 business lines, so business insurance, personal lines, mutual funds, and then employee benefits, which will be the center of our topic today. And then fun facts, because I think it's just nice to get to understand the identity of company at more than, and looking at more than just numbers as well as other information. So we're a founding partner of the U.S. Paralympics, and we actually provided insurance for the only home Abraham Lincoln ever owned, which I learned when I started there. Very interesting. So how did the partnership between DocuSign and the Hartford come to be? So I think in general, and we've heard this message a few times today, taking a step back, and we all work in the insurance industry, so we're very aware it's a very paper-laden process. Anywhere you look, there's paper, and I think often a badge of honor is being really good at paper, right? That's something we all take quite a bit of pride in. So as a result, though, there's tons and tons of opportunity. So today, within employee benefits, we're going to look at a use case that we implemented in the fall of last year. This was specifically our evidence of insurability process, which exists during our customer acquisition experience. So evidence of insurability, for you others in the room that maybe aren't in the employee benefit space, it's basically a process in the acquisition when a customer selects a benefit amount above their guaranteed amount. So it's coverage that employees have decided they want. Our customers say, we want this much insurance. And then for us as an insurer, it's actually what we consider good risk, right? So it kicks off this process where we're gaining a little bit more information about a customer's health, and we tend to want to write it. It's a good source of revenue for us. So I think as we move through this, the important thing to remember is the customer wants the coverage, we want to write the coverage, and so at the crux of that, we want to get as many people through this process as possible. So this process isn't new. Evidence of insurability has existed as long as group life insurance has existed. So the Hartford has had to respond to that over time. And we have two existing processes. So when we started out on this journey, we had both a paper as well as a digital solution. So one thing that I think you might be wondering is if we already had a digital solution, how did we end up with DocuSign? So I think it's important to note that as we started out on this, we weren't looking for DocuSign as a solution. We were looking at what were the problems that we had within our existing experience that we needed to fix. So how could we get as many people through as easy as possible? And we evaluated both our existing digital as well as our paper process. So our digital pain points is a robust offering, so it's easy for consumers to complete, but we actually have to get through the front door of employers, and this required quite a bit of effort on their part to give us data to get it established, as well as effort on our part to stand up the solution. So as a result, it wasn't perfect for everybody, especially when you're thinking down market and small employers. They don't have an extra person to help us support standing up a fully digital experience. So as a result, we still have paper, and quite a bit of it. So 30% of our business is still using paper. So with paper, that comes, again, with a bunch of pain points, including low return rates. So our return rate on paper is 30%. So I'm going to keep going back to, these are people, they want insurance, we want to write it, and I can only get 30% in the door with paper. As well as it's just manual. So to get paper out to the employees, to get it back in, to process it, it just required quite a bit of work. So at that point, as we looked at these pain points, we reached out to DocuSign to figure out if this would be a good opportunity to partner together to look at that solution and see if we can increase the value that we were bringing to our customers. So we pitched the solution. It seemed like a great opportunity as we brought that through internally. When in the meeting that we received the approval to move forward, it was 6 weeks from that approval to the first employee getting an email inviting them to complete their evidence of insurability electronically. So 6 weeks is no 14 days, but for us, it had not been done before. So it's pretty quick for us. We also measured our results. So prior to starting the pilot, we discussed what indicators would we look at to know if this was successful and would look at a broader launch. So one of that is missing information. So all of us using paper, you know that you're not going to get good paper every time. Right? People don't complete forms completely, or they fill them out unclear. We were basically able to use the rules in DocuSign to drive completion. So we completely eliminated it. Every form we got had all the information we needed in the format that we needed it in. We were able to improve our return rate by 250%. 250%, right? So this return rate actually exceeded our digital return rate, and I'm going to get into that a little when we look at the path forward. We were able to reduce our manual processing time by 50%, and I think it's important to note here that we didn't use the API integrator. So this is just the web console, and the time saved here was the manual processing time that it took to support a paper process, from receiving a form, scanning in a form, keying in a form, and all the work that was required to support that. And then the last piece is the cycle time. So for paper forms, we actually have no insight. So my cycle time went from TBD, even though we tried a few creative ways to understand it, from pull a sample of forms and take the signature date and then the date I processed it, and maybe that'll help me understand what the cycle time is. So basically we went with, we didn't know it, so a benefit was we could actually now measure it, and it was 7.5 days, and we estimate the current one to be somewhere around 20 to 30 days. So what else? So there's quite a bit of ancillary benefits in addition to kind of the hard saves that the business had. One was the speed to market. So like I said, no 14 days, but now I have my bar that I'm going towards, but 6 weeks was great for us. So to be able to make a decision and deliver a product quickly allowed the business to see how digital experiences can provide value really quickly to the business, and allows us to use those quick wins to gain the momentum we need to drive kind of our digital agenda forward. Positive voice of customer. So we linked it to a survey at the end and got really positive results from the employees that used it, but we also had great positive feedback from employers as well as the business supporting it. Culture change is probably my biggest benefit of this entire thing. So as a 200-year-old insurance company, I think culture is tough to change. So we all see that the transformation in insurance is coming, and the need to provide our customers with value is leading us to do that digitally. However, we're risk adverse, we're insurance companies, right? So this allowed us to really do something quick, inexpensively, show immediate value, and create kind of our own evangelists, not just DocuSign, but also just the fact that digital can help drive those business outcomes. And then last is learning to fish. So we did spend part of that 6 weeks training internal resources to understand the web console and be able to create their own forms. And I think this is critical, because what this has resulted in, even in the past 2 weeks, I've gotten emails from other areas saying, hey, I heard DocuSign might be able to help me with my processes, and that's really what we want. So my entire team doesn't want to be the one kind of evangelizing how digital can help the business. I want the business to really be looking for that, so it's more of a pull versus a push environment. So where are we going from here? So the numbers really spoke for themselves, and that's kind of what we were hoping for, is that instead of trying to get a big project approved, I could do something smaller scale rather inexpensively, and the numbers would sell the rest of the project itself. So we are looking at a full rollout. I think here what we didn't expect, though, is that we wanted to convert all of our paper users to DocuSign. But with the return rates that we saw, there's also digital users that are a better fit for the DocuSign solution, something we definitely did not anticipate. And are looking forward on kind of creating what that looks like. So I don't think for us we'll ever get rid of a full, robust digital solution. But what this allows us to do is put the right solution with the right employers so that our service meets their needs. The last is the next piece of just this use case is to integrate as well. So we really do want to be able to provide that integration and remove all the manual steps in the process within our back office today. So we'll be looking to integrate the data with DocuSign right within our back office systems to do that. And then additional paper processes. So my team is looking at additional paper processes to identify those opportunities on what else should we be looking at and how can we leverage this technology to continue to bring value to our customers as well as our business partners. Like I mentioned before, lucky for us, what we're finding is the business is actually now looking at their own processes and asking us to come in to help them digitize them to provide them with value. That's it. So, questions?
Any questions?
Can you maybe talk about like an example of where you said you had a digital user? Like, what system did you displace, or just what did you displace?
So our digital. So I won't go into the exact system, but for
Why not?
because there's probably some of us in here that use it. So So I think for us, our digital experience, what we had found, the ones that we'll be looking at moving from that to DocuSign are ones where we didn't have an SSO integration. So our digital experience, there are pockets where we allow employees to SSO right from their employers, and that makes a lot of sense. We're catching employees right where they are as they're going through their benefit selection or where they manage their benefits with their employers, and that's where I think that solution will continue to exist. It's others where they wanted to use a digital system, but we were still looking at logging people in. Somebody still had to come up with user ID credentials just to get in the system. And for us, and we actually did not do two-factor authentication because we're not pre-filling the form for customers, just getting rid of that barrier of, okay, I'm ready to digitally complete my evidence of insurability, and then I hit a page where it's now prompting me to register. It's just that extra 3 minutes that I think we lose customers right off the bat.
Any other questions? Shannon, thank you so much. It's interesting in how you outline that this is a business you wanted to do, and this is the product that customers wanted to buy, and still only 30% will return the envelopes. And this is a classic example of when doing business gets in the way of doing business, and you were able to eliminate that. Great example, and we tend to see that quite often. It's just a simple things that when you make things slightly easier, all of a sudden the response from customers is very different. Not only that, what we see is the insurance industry. I mean, I work with all the insurance companies, and you commonly see almost every insurance company would have customer experience as one of their top 3 priorities. But the challenge insurance industry faces is the customer's experience of your brand is defined by the sum of experiences they have with insurance companies. And that's not only for insurance companies, that's for any brand. The challenge in the insurance company is the number of opportunities you have for those interactions is extremely small compared to retail, bank, or anybody else. So we have to maximize the value you can build for your brand from those few interactions we have. But the reality is that although we would have made investments of tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in internal systems, when it comes to time for the time for moment of truth, when the transaction that matters for the customer is done, we revert back to this state-of-the-art 10,000-year-old technology called paper. And that's how our brand is defined and the image is changed. So although we have so many different priorities, focusing on this last 5-10 yards of that customer interaction becomes so critical because right away it changes the brand image of our company. And that has been one of the primary driver that we see on customers are looking to include DocuSign in their digital journey to fill in those gaps where despite the major investment to digitize internal processes, the value is not extracted by displaying that to the customer, and now DocuSign provides that option. So these are some of the great examples we wanted to share. You certainly can hang out and ask more detailed questions to our guest, but I wanted to thank both Eric and Shannon for spending your time, and thanks everyone for attending. With that, appreciate you being here.